Hello, Internet. I'm HamsterBomb.
And I'm Zach.
And this is HITBOX, the gaming podcast where we talk about playing video games. You know what, Zach?
Yeah.
You might have heard there is this brand new Nintendo console that is coming out sometime soon.
Oh my god.
It is supposed to be twice the bits as the last console. Can you imagine? It's gonna be called the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, because the year is 1992 in the United States, right?
I see.
I mean, last I checked, it's been a while since I've seen a phone, or anybody for that matter. So, actually, you know, the corner of my computer must be messed up because it says 2024, and we're gonna be living like the Jetsons by then. That can't be real. So, instead, we decided to compile a list of some of our favorite games for this console to play on. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System. So, no better way to do this than by using the Super Nintendo Classic, and I just noticed, weirdly enough, by hacking this thing enough, it deleted some of my saves on the base stuff, and now Star Fox 2 needs to be re-unlocked. But
oh, the humanity.
Oh no, I'll have to play these games again.
Oh my god, whatever will you do?
I know. So
you poor thing.
Just like our episode with the NES, where we decided to have like a desert island scenario, you are given this particular console, and the console today in question is the Super Nintendo. You have 10 games that you're permitted to get, but that is all. No more. Choose only 10. And even if you're just looking at the base stuff that came on the Super Nintendo Classic, which we are looking at right now in terms of actually getting to demonstrate and play these games today, there's more than 10 here, and I feel like this is not even close to enough Super Nintendo games.
Absolutely not.
No. It's a great selection, but I would still be very disappointed if this is all I had, because both of us are going to have games that are not on this curated selection here. So we're going to have to go into more that I have added. But if we are just going to stick with some that did come on this list, Zach, would you like to go first? Or should we just, like, we have a lot of them. Here, get this, guys. Even though the Super Nintendo has an enormous library, we still have only, like, 4 games, I think, on our list that we don't share.
Correct. Yes, we actually agreed on quite a few of them, which surprised the heck out of me when I realized this.
Yeah, this library is enormous, but the games on it are outrageously good, and there's some that I feel like you just can't do without. And the first one, alphabetically on both of our lists, we both decided if you get a Super Nintendo, you need Final Fantasy III.
Absolutely. My
Which is
absolute
actually
favorite.
6. Yes. Yeah, you know what? So far of the ones I've beaten, I agree. Yeah, this is my favorite of the numbered Final Fantasy games. This is really great.
Yeah, for me, it just kind of hits like all the right notes of what I kind of come to expect from a Final Fantasy game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, which is weird because this was a huge departure for them at the time. This was
it really was.
Yeah, and think of the stuff that the team wanted to do and they were rejecting for Final Fantasy, which some of those games ended up being some of my favorite RPGs. Like, yeah, we would eventually get Chrono Trigger and Xenogears and lots of other amazing stuff that wasn't even allowed to be Final Fantasy because they thought it was going too far. Let me tell you,
Parasite
Final
Eve
Fantasy
was originally
3 goes too far. Yeah, even Parasite Eve, man.
Yeah, no. So, because the big thing that this game did, at least in terms of themes, was that it switched from like a purely fantasy, like medieval style fantasy setting to a steampunk setting where
a post-apocalyptic magic destruction future where people are rebuilding their lives devoid of magic. And kind of like in Star Wars, because there's heavy Star Wars references in all the Final Fantasy games. But the big Star Wars thing is that this unknowable magic is almost like the Force, right? And most people don't even believe in it. And they're
No.
thinking, no, and it destroyed the world in the past, and they're rediscovering what this is, and using it to topple the giant galactic empire. And of course, you're accompanied by Biggs and Wedge here in the beginning.
As is tradition in most Final Fantasies.
Yep, there's a Biggs and Wedge hidden somewhere because Star Wars is awesome, and even though we're making a fantasy game, and this at heart still is very much a fantasy game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the other things that I think this game does right is, if we want to talk about how this is different, is how it handles character customization. Whereas before in a lot of Final Fantasies, characters either came with a predefined job, or you could actually go through like a job list and switch up your characters however you like. With this one, it's kind of a mix of both. Your characters still have their innate jobs, like Locke is still your thief, Terra is still your, magic user.
Right.
But you have Magicite that you can equip to each and every character to also add a bunch of flavor and make them like magic attackers or support healers. It adds an extra layer of customization that I absolutely think is only rivaled in the series by, I think, Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, in 7, you level up the materia, or the actual attack itself, and you can trade it between people. In 6, you're leveling up, like, the core crystal of an actual, they call them espers, the summons.
Yes.
And when you level up with that core, that is what teaches the person that spell, and they permanently have it. You can trade it around to teach everybody everything. So in that way, you really do get to sculpt your whole team, and it's kind of like having a light job system. But the big thing about this, Zach, is, by God, this game's beautiful.
Oh, from a visual and audio perspective, yes.
Storytelling, man. Like, this has it all. So, jumping from, like we mentioned last time, the NES, we wanted to put RPGs on there. We both love RPGs, but my God, it didn't get outstanding until the Super Nintendo hit, and oh my God, these are some experts in the field making some of their best work they've ever done.
I wholeheartedly agree. Like, the NES laid the foundation for a lot of what we would come to expect from RPGs. The Super Nintendo, I would argue, perfected what we expect from JRPGs.
We still get games today, new games, that are just emulating this era. Think like Sea of Stars, that just came out. That game is like not even trying to hide it. It is very much trying to be those old... It's trying to be Chrono Trigger, Mario RPG. It wants to be a Super Nintendo indie game, It's just trying to do it modern day. It's pretty darn good. Thing is, when you try and emulate games of that era or of that high caliber, I am already putting my standards up really high because of how good these games are. And this is one of them that I was like, no, if you have a Super Nintendo, you need this one. Plus, there's just so much to do. You could really play this almost forever. It's not a hard game, but there's a tremendous amount of stuff you can do, as well as replaying it to experience more of the cast. Honestly, when I played this game, several characters, like Gao in particular, I don't think I even got him over level 17. Like, I just didn't use him. There were other characters where I kind of got forced to use because of splitting the party 3 ways towards the end of the game. I don't want to spoil any of the story. I guess before we talk about this one too long, luckily we have shared a lot of games on our list today.
Yes.
We can say that this game has been reviewed on my channel, so you can check it out on Playing With Myself if you are very curious. The first time I played it to completion, I played this on the
Pixel Remaster.
Pixel Remasters, right. This game, and I mentioned this in the review too, there's no perfect way to play this game. There's like always one drawback in every edition of it. And there's a lot of editions
Unfortunately, yeah. Which is a shame, but hey, it does little to mar what I would argue is probably Square's best Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I agree. There's really not too much that I would ask for in the Pixel Remaster, outside of them giving us the proper font. They tried, but they didn't quite do it. There's still a few quirks in it. It's also missing some of the additions from the Game Boy Advance, but honestly, it doesn't need those things to feel like a complete version of the game. It's still really good. It's a lot of fun. I still think that even though we were lied to and called Final Fantasy III, it is still an outstanding title on the Super Nintendo, and one that we really didn't want to skip over.
Yeah, should not be missed, I would argue.
Alphabetically, our next one that we shared, Zach? Oh my goodness.
We are talking about it.
It.
The Zelda game.
The Zelda game.
The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past.
Mm-hmm. God, this game is so good.
Yes.
So good. Man.
Still holds up today, I would argue, and definitely one you would need to play if you haven't played this yet.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is probably the best Zelda game in general. Like, I think it figured everything out. It figured out how to do the story really well. The world design, the way that everything unlinks itself, not to try and make too much of a pun, but think like Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 on the NES. Those sure were like a giant open world, and you just discovered things as you go. This time, there are so many tools that you can find, so much magic, so many things that you can do, and all of them unlock something on that greater map. It's...
Yes.
Ooh. It's all intertwined so well. The dungeons are so well designed this time. Zach, I'm struggling putting to words how much I love this game.
I think
I have reviewed this one as well, so I guess I could just say go check out that review where I am smitten with this game.
Yes, I don't blame you in the slightest. It might be strange to say, kind of given like the context behind the term, but for me, this is one of my comfort games. Like this, I would consider to be a cozy video game.
Oh yeah,
honestly,
yeah. It's luckily not too difficult. It's very forgiving with its saves and its respawns. Yeah, it's fast traveling. Money is very easy to come by. It's really not a tough one. The way that like its puzzles are designed, it's not like it's ever unfair to you. It's just tough enough that it makes you scratch your head and try and figure out how you can outwit some of the situations that you're put in.
Yeah, absolutely. This game literally is the blueprint for most all future Zelda games.
I wish that were true.
That's why I said most all future Zelda games.
Yeah, anymore, I don't think they've made a proper Zelda that was based on this with its formula since, God, I don't want to say it, Skyward Sword, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't like that game. Like, the best part of it is honestly the fact that it's emulating this to an extent. Everything else kind of gets in the way, and instead of trying to crap on that game, this one is really coming up with the formula of tease the player with the fun opening segment that they get to play, where they are slowly given one item at a time through dungeons. You collect 3 colored things to get a better sword, to go get more things. They're going to help you fight the big bad by the end of the game. That, and finding pieces of heart all over the place, like, we're not leveling up anymore. You don't just get a whole honkin' heart when you touch one of these things or burn a random bush in Zelda 1. No, the game feels so much more fair and balanced. It's like so many tweaks went into this. It's amazing we got this big of a jump in just one console leap.
Yeah, because we got Zelda 1 in 86, and I think Zelda 2 in, what, 88, 89?
Yeah, and even then, I've actually been reading up on the old Nintendo Power articles, and even back then, people were so freaking excited for Zelda 2. And it didn't matter that the game was crazy hard. It didn't matter that the map was really weird, that everything was like a completely different style of gameplay to what they were familiar with. That didn't matter. It was the fact that it was more Zelda. And it was establishing a lot of very important stuff for Zelda that I think this game does a much better job for incorporating it back into the top-down proven formula.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I'm glad that this is the direction that Nintendo went with Zelda for the longest time.
Yeah, I really wish they'd go back, because I understand, I want to see companies branch out and try new things. And if you can tell me that this game did anything bad, it was stagnate the Zelda series, because everything was just looking back at this, wanting to be this game again. Even if it was just wanting to be this game in 3D, and then wanting to be the version of this game in 3D again. just doing the same thing, and you know, it's fine. It worked well.
It works phenomenally well, yeah, and it's again though the whole thing of this basically laying the blueprint for the stagnation of the series. That's more on the future and how they decided to make the games. It's not really the fault of this game itself.
Absolutely,
I would say
no.
Yeah. But still, like you said, I love it for its exploration, the way everything is linked together. I think Nintendo uses the term like puzzle box design to talk about game worlds and level design, right?
Yeah,
where
it's almost like a little Rubik's Cube you get to hold. When you go into each dungeon, it's its own little place, and you're trying to figure out, how do I approach rooms from a certain direction? How do I use this item that I got in this dungeon to open up new parts of it? Or where do I take this character? Sometimes characters will actually follow you.
Yes,
right now
yes,
we're
yes,
escorting Princess Zelda out of the castle.
I love this opening scene too, where it's literally just the lone hero storming the castle to save the princess. It's so classic and so well pulled off, I think.
In the middle of a stormy night after she telepathically spoke to him in a dream. His uncle goes out in the rain. You find him dying in the bottom of a well. You take his equipment and go on like this one-man journey to go save this prince. Like, it's mad. And it's just the beginning of this game.
It very much is the whole hero's journey from like Joseph Campbell. It's like to a T almost. And my God, I want to go back and play this game now. Like, as soon as we're done, I'm very tempted to boot up my Super Nintendo Classic and just play this again.
Yeah, it's so good. I'm just having trouble stopping myself to move on to the next game because it's so good. It's another game where, like, I think something that Zelda 1 didn't really do quite right, that this does phenomenally well, probably the last thing I want to talk about, is scaling. You start in Zelda 1 and you end in Zelda 1 still feeling like the same guy. You know, like, just because you have more hearts, that's really the only thing that makes me feel stronger. In this, you get so much utility. You have so many powerful attacks, so much at your disposal, that it really feels like you're a new person. Like, you can storm that castle in the end and take on Ganon, because that's just how powerful you've become.
I agree with you on that, where it's like, I don't know how much the NES was holding Zelda 1 back in that regard, but the fact that they had more power to be able to do that with this game is just I don't know. I words fail me in the presence of this.
I know.
Call me a simp, call me a sucker. I don't care. This is a great game. Go play it if you haven't.
Yeah, it's on NSO for crying out loud. You can even rewind, you sissies.
That's right.
Which is how Kim decided to play it. She called herself the hero of time. Rewinding.
Here she really was.
Yeah, she was refusing to, like, even go back and buy some blue potions before fighting Ganon, jumping into the pyramid at the very end. I was like, you're gonna get yourself killed. She's like, I can rewind, I'll be fine. Like, no, really, it's gonna be miserable. Don't do that. She did it anyway. Took a while. But anyway,
she did it.
God, I have to tear myself away from this game at one point.
Yeah, we kind of have to move on.
I know. Anyway, the next one we have on here that we both needed on our list. Well, what do you know? It's a Castlevania.
Castlevania?
Castlevania? Well, we could call it Castlevania 4, but really it's better known as Super Castlevania. A sort of kind of remake of the original NES game. But it's Super now!
That's right. We got the power of the Super Nintendo. It's like, aren't you glad you begged your parents to get you the Super Nintendo so you could play the same game again?
Yeah, man, look at the fog. Look at the depth. Look at the color, man.
Look at that totally not Arnold Schwarzenegger barbarian man.
And more importantly, check out this whip.
That's right. Yeah,
and
so
moonwalking up the stairs, buddy.
You have to. Every single one. So the thing that separates this Castlevania from all the others, where you could only whip in one direction, that being forward, this game opens up all directions to you to whip. You can whip up, down, left, right. You can whip in the, diagonally. You can hold the button in order to let the whip go limp in front of you and use it as a shield to block projectiles. It's so freaking versatile, and it really elevates this game, I think, even in comparison to some of the other Castlevania games.
Yes, it's still, in a way, like, this still might be my favorite Castlevania that I've completed, and that's probably just because I haven't completed Rondo yet.
Yeah, Rondo is really good, and that's one of my favorites, but honestly, it's like, who had a TurboGrafx CD for a game that never came out in the West?
Well, not really. So the Super Nintendo, we would get Dracula X, which is really not the same thing, but it's almost the same thing. Like, it's them trying to make a port, but it just isn't a port.
Yeah, it's a good game in its own right, but it's not Rondo of Blood.
Nope.
That's the problem. But this game, though, you have access.
The cinematics, everything. Oh, this is Castlevania.
Uh-huh. The music I really do enjoy in this one. It's not my favorite of the series, but a lot of people I've read online just go absolutely crazy for this soundtrack. And it's like, for a good reason, I would say.
It's got some great tracks. Not the whole thing as around, like, but this opening one is amazing.
Yeah, it's not Castlevania 1 classic status in my opinion, but it is so freaking good where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, and the important bits. Get you excited. You're running into a spooky haunted house, hitting basically everything you can imagine that you would run into in Spirit Halloween.
That's right.
Yeah, and you're gonna kill it.
Ghost go boo, bat go scree, and you go wee with the whip. But honestly though, it's just so strange that Konami basically already remade this game that they had just released, what, 5 years prior?
Right, to be fair, though, what they were doing with the rest of the Castlevania games, they were pretty much just trying to be that first one again after they realized what had happened with the second one. Though even still, like I said, those old Nintendo powers, like, it's easy to look back and say, oh, that game was awful, but, like, no, man, people loved Castlevania 1, and just like Zelda 1, they were willing to say, you know what, whatever it takes, I'm gonna be all over Castlevania because I just love the game, and they were trying to figure out how do I beat Simon's Quest. And moving from there to Castlevania 3, insanely hard game. So this was a good middle ground. Now, this game still gets stupidly hard in many segments, but it's still, I'd say, generally easier than Castlevania 3. And for players at the time, it was a great middle ground. Like, this beginning segment, I don't even think I'm getting a hit.
No, I was gonna say, you've taken minimal damage, and probably not having played this game in a while, I applaud you.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I played this there. I finally got hit by something, trying to hit it with a weird angle. Points are still a thing. That's probably the most out-of-date thing that this Castlevania does, if it was going to be, like, the most modern ever. Because this does kind of feel like the most modern, perfect version of Castlevania 1. Though in some ways I still kind of want to go back and play Castlevania 1. This is just like the control, the graphics, you know. It's really showing off the Super Nintendo, and it's one of the best action platformers you can play on this whole console. Which is probably why we both decided it had to be on this list.
Uh-huh. Yep, and if y'all don't have a Super Nintendo Classic, you can actually get the Castlevania Anniversary Collection, which has this game and a whole bunch of others. That, you know, if
enough, but yes, it has a bunch of others.
Oh yeah, oh no, never enough is never enough, in the words of a wise man.
Well,
wise raccoon.
Though I was happy that they sold it, I was very disappointed of what wasn't included.
Oh, same, but you know, just deals are what they are, so. But anything you wanted to add about this phenomenal game before we move on?
It's phenomenal, man. I love it. I love it a lot.
Yep.
You know, if anything, I would say that the whip might actually be too good in this one. You know, like...
Yeah, it's both its greatest asset and also the biggest thing that kind of holds some of the design back. Like, I barely use...
How do I throw my...
R.
Oh, it's R. Okay. See, it's been a long time. I'm used to hitting up in A this whole time and nothing was happening.
Oh, you're good. But yeah, I would actually not use this. I don't use the sub weapons all that much in this game, just because the whip is just such a better answer.
That's what I was trying to say before. Whoa! Oh, you little...
Oh, he spawned right on top of you too.
Didn't realize he was going to do that. Anyway, so Super Castlevania. It's a great time.
Shall we move on to probably one of the greatest games of all time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what it is.
Yeah.
It's a Super Mario World!
Super Mario! This was huge.
Oh, for sure.
It still is huge. Like, I
Yeah.
still think, we were just saying that I think Link to the Past is still the best Legend of Zelda game, period. Like, 3D or not. This is, in my opinion, still the best Mario game. Like, period. 3D or 2D.
Yeah, I might not go that far, but I mean, for 2D, absolutely. The only thing that's come close to even dethroning it is Super Mario Wonder, and it took them like decades to even come close to that.
There's still, after beating it, Wonder, I was still thinking, like, you know, the only thing that is keeping this from being the perfect Mario World sequel that I've always wanted, when you beat, like, one of the wonders in that, you've kind of seen it and you're done with it. You know, the game can't do it twice. Mario World, you can play it as many times as your brain will possibly allow you before you vomit out of exhaustion, and it is still beautiful and perfect. Let's actually start it.
Yeah, because the thing that Mario World does is that it takes what it has and it actually builds and builds throughout the whole game. Whereas, like you were saying, with the Wonder Seeds, it's almost a one and done kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is fine in its own right and really does help to spice up some of the levels. But the fact that you can't really build too much off of the Wonder Seeds, I think, is probably the only thing holding it back. Whereas with Mario World, it takes the Fire Flower and the Cape and like all the secret finding and just builds on it and makes it harder in some instances or just trickier to traverse as the game goes on.
Certain power-ups in certain places. But also, I think the biggest aspect of this is something we're looking at right now. You actually start on a crossroads. You're not on a level. It tells you to either choose to go left or right. And that is the game already teaching you. This is not going to be like any other Mario you've ever seen. You don't just start in a level and they're immediately going to shoot a bonsai bill at you. You spin jump for extra damage. You can even bounce off of enemies. P-speed is also in the game. It's just kind of hidden. You can now see when your arms come out. Mario kind of has his P-speed back.
I don't mind them taking away the P-speed meter at the bottom because it's so much easier to tell in this game when you've achieved P-speed.
Showcasing there, you can even jump on a piranha plant with the use of that spin jump. If you're big, you can destroy some of these platforms, which from below, like, these are all, like, things that we have seen Mario do in 3. But now in World, like, the colors here, the music, like, probably the biggest thing, and this is going to sound like a stupid gripe about Mario 3, but, boy, the colors are ugly in that game.
In some regards, yeah, I will give you that.
Yeah, like, it's so much closer to getting it. It's an enormous step forward. It really is like half of the step from Mario Brothers 1 to take us here into World, where we have like this seemingly perfect 2D Mario game.
I would agree, yeah. Like, I think Super Mario Brothers 3 is probably one of the best, if not the best game on the original Nintendo.
Yeah, I can see that argument.
But honestly, though, yeah, it's still held back by some of the limitations where it is, unfortunately, just a smidge. Probably not well. Okay, we'll just say ugly.
Yeah, the colors are kind of gross. Some of the levels, in particular, are really, I'm gonna say mean. Like,
they can be, yeah.
They're just mean. They're not even fair. But most of the time, it's about figuring out how you're going to progress through the worlds, how you're going to... Similar to this, like, each world, you have a save. You're actually permanently changing the entire world every time you make some sort of a change. So if we hit the POW block in here, then suddenly we're in a switch palace, and there's going to be a bunch of different yellow switches that appear in the world, where otherwise they wouldn't have been there at all. So now I have extra platforms, I might have blocks that'll give me power-ups, and you can keep changing the world, finding secret exits out of the same level. And the best part about this is, unlike Mario 3, there was always lines, in like a board game. You could always see where you're going and what your goal is. In this one, you can even see Donut Plains going up there. That's got some genius hidden directions. They're not going to start doing that until we actually get up there. Until then, it's linear. For the most part, linear. Like, we still had to choose which direction to go here in Yoshi's Island.
Yeah, you got to get used to the new physics and how this game works, yeah.
But yeah, once we get there, I mean, Star World, There's so much.
Honestly, like, because I'll be real with you guys, I don't think I ever, yeah, as I told Alex before this year, I don't think I ever beat this game.
Oh.
And it was only in this year that I finally just hunkered down, sat down, since I'm like, you know what, I had knee replacement, I've got nothing better to do with my time, let's beat a classic. And
Yes.
I'm really happy I did.
Did you beat did you get every exit? I don't know how complete you did, or just like beat Bowser.
I beat Bowser, and I beat some of the Star Road, but I didn't get to, like, Gnarly or Tubular or anything like that.
Oh, those are so good.
Yeah. I mean,
so
my backlog's a mile long, but yeah, it's still, yeah.
I think this game deserves it. For you guys listening out there too, if you like enjoy, if you're playing any of the new, I would say like Mario Maker, you like 2D Mario just in general, you played Mario Wonder, I think it's great. This game came out in what, like 91? And
yeah.
I think it's better than Mario Wonder, and I am not exaggerating. I love Mario Wonder, okay? I think it's wonderful.
Oh my god. He made jokes.
But this game's better.
I still would argue that, yeah, this game is better. Anything else you want to add about this?
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Me too.
Also introduces Yoshi. Look at that cutie.
Yeah, my boy Yoshi.
Castles, man, everything in this is just.
Honestly, this is another one of those Super Nintendo games that really sets up everything we are familiar with in the future of the franchise.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, we get Yoshi, we get ghost houses and all that.
Mario finally looks like himself. Luigi eventually comes into his own. If you played as Luigi base Super Nintendo, not like the Game Boy Advance version, he just looked like a color palette Super Mario again. Though his character art certainly didn't look like that. But you see those little yellow blocks. Those would not have been there had we not hit the Switch Palace, making this level easier. So, like, immediately they're trying to show you, go in different directions, and you're actually trying to push your way forward while going wide. And that's something that Mario's never done. I would even say since. Because we get, like, the new Super Mario series, which is going back to basics of the... Not even Mario 3. Like, they were practically straight lines. Mario 3D World kind of brought some of that back, but it still just wasn't quite right. So that's why Mario Wonder was such a big deal, because it was finally a Mario World sequel, which really, this is Super Mario 4, and Mario Wonder, you could call Super Mario Brothers 5. It could have come out titled like that, and it would have been cool. Like, that's exactly what it is, and that's how long we've been waiting for that. I don't know about you, Zach, but there's another game on here that I kind of really like a lot, and
oh yeah?
Yeah, it's on my list. I don't know about you, but
I think it might be.
We're gonna play the greatest goddamn video game ever made.
And what is the greatest goddamn video game ever made?
It's called Goddamn Super Metroid.
Oh wow, they were able to get away with naming it that at the time? Sheesh.
The last goddamn Metroid is in captivity. The goddamn galaxy is a goddamn piece. I love this game, if you couldn't tell. Now, there's a lot of Super Metroid on my channel. You don't need me to tell you why I love this game, so I think I'm gonna let Zach speak after I just say I have reviewed this game. I have done series that in-depth studies everything about this game from beginning to end, called the Super Metroid Experience. The chapter for Meridia is coming soon. I've also done speedruns of this for my Metrothons. You can check those out. We have a lot of fun with this game. I adore it. I've even randomized this with Link to the Past. We did it with Mario World as well, called it MMZR. It's an old series. You can check that one out as well. I've even considered doing a sequel to it. I love this game. This is my favorite series, and this is my favorite instance of the series. Perfect. This game is pristine, man. Zach, you may speak. I'll try not to say another word about how this game is so freaking great.
Chef Kiss. A little bit of Bam. So sorry, I had to get my footing there. I don't know how to top that. I freaking adore this game too. I didn't play this until my totally not emulation days, you know, before getting, you know, NSO and all that. I don't know how I would have played this before.
I didn't have a Super Nintendo. I mean, I do now, and you bet this game never comes out of it. And now that's like the topic of the conversation today. We're talking about, like, if you had a Super Nintendo, what would you play?
Yes.
I have a Super Nintendo. I actually only have 5 games for it, physicals, and this doesn't come out. It doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
No. And I've got Link to the Past right there. I love it. I have Mario World right there. I love it. I have 2 other games that are gonna be on my list. I love them too. But I'm sorry.
So I think the thing with Super Metroid, again, like we've said with Super Mario World and definitely with Link to the Past, is that this is the game that really gets the Metroid formula perfect.
Yes.
I don't think any other game, even after this game came out, has done justice for this. Save probably Dread, but Dread is a slightly different beast altogether in its own way.
It is, yeah. Once again, just like Wonder, I love Dread, but it's a different game, and I still love this more. If they made a full Super Metroid remake like Metroid Dread, you get Mercury Steam and you try and make it just like this one, yeah, it has the potential of being better, but there's so many opportunities to mess it up.
So the thing that I really love about this game is that, again, just like a lot of other good search action type games, it slowly opens up a huge, massive planet for you to discover and to find not only upgrades, but like to add more and more to your arsenal to take on the space pirates who you actually finally see for the first time. So they weren't just those little bugs that were crawling on the walls. No, they're like insectoid crab monster men.
Yeah, and another thing that's pretty crazy is this is also, like Super Castlevania, kind of a remake, but not really, of Metroid 1. This is Metroid 3, so it is like canonically its own thing, but it's coming up with an excuse for Samus to come back again, because you gotta remember, there hasn't really been a Metroid game in a long time. This back in the day after Metroid 2 felt like a really long wait, okay? We didn't know what a long wait was yet.
Yep. No, if your game took more than a year to make, it might as well have been vaporware back in the day.
Yeah.
Like I said, it really takes the core concept of what we established with the NES and the Game Boy games and really just cranks it up to 11.
It's finding the best of both worlds, Zebus and SR388, and putting them back into Zebus again.
Exactly. The one thing I will say too, because I don't want to make this one too awful long either, is that the thing I appreciate about the world is that it doesn't throw so much at you that it gets overwhelming. It smartly, and as you've probably been talking about in your series, I haven't checked the latest episode, really gates off progression until you are familiar enough with how your character handles or how a certain power-up works before you can move on and like discover more with what you've got.
Right. Metroid games do this genius thing where they try to break your knowledge of video games. So most action platformers at the time taught you to run to the right. You do that in Super Metroid, there's a ledge you can't reach, and there is a blocked wall after that. You're forced to run left. You're already out of your comfort zone in this beautiful stormy environment. But also, the next thing, like what you're saying, it's immediately showing me tunnels that I can't get inside of. There's some right there. There's some more breakable wall back that direction. I fall down here. There is the second tunnel that I cannot fit through right there. And if I were to go through this door, which most people probably would be exploring the doors as they go, they run into a third one. So the game will cleverly do this where instead of having tutorials, it's brave enough to let you experience what you as a player, like it respects you and your intelligence. It understands that you're probably going to be looking around for the way forward, and by doing so, you realize, oh shoot, I couldn't go that way, but I bet there's a way to do that. There's a second one. Oh, there's a third one. I have to remember to come back and do this. And then when you get that ability, which we're about to, you know precisely where to go. And the whole game is like that. So even though what we just did felt like it was organic and I was just kind of exploring, you have to go this way. And there's a lot of parts of the early game where you really have to go the ways that they want before they know, okay, we trust you. As soon as you get the Varia suit, the game starts really opening up, and it'll let you do all sorts of crazy stuff. You could start fighting the bosses out of order. It's really up to you.
And so many games styled after Metroid don't get that part right, and for a lot of them, it really kind of feels overwhelming. Like, okay, this is way too much information. I can't process all this. Whereas I don't, especially on the first couple playthroughs, I didn't exactly feel that with this game, with Super Metroid. I felt like I actually had enough knowledge for the areas available to me that I could actually go out and, get used to the world. And I felt comfortable in exploring this hostile hellscape where you can just die like lickety-split, like Samus is a glass cannon still.
Though, maybe it's just because I'm disenfranchised by playing this a million times, but I find this to be the easiest of the 2D Metroid games. I don't know what you think about that. Have you beaten all 5?
I haven't beaten the original
Game
version
Boy,
of...
Yeah, I didn't mean like Samus Returns and Zero Mission.
Right.
But yeah.
I have beaten the NES game, and that was a battle in and of itself. I did not
beat
be.
The... Once you know what you're doing, like as you can tell from my Metrothons, like it's really not bad. It's just that first time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's rough.
And even after having beaten it, I still couldn't tell you how to properly get through the game seamlessly.
Weirdly enough, like now I love it. Like, and it's not like a weird, I don't know, like a Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah,
I actually think, like, the more I play it, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm getting it. It's clicking. Because, believe it or not, you look up Nintendo Power episode, like the issue 1, okay? They have polls of players' favorite video games at the time, and it's a very interesting thing to see what people were actually saying was their favorite game back then. The second most popular video game on their polled list, with thousands of people, this wasn't just like some sort of, fluke, was Metroid. Right. NES.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Only topped by, I think, Zelda, if I remember correctly. So, yeah,
awesome.
It was, it was eye-opening to see how much people adored it, and then it just kind of vanished. And then, like, they made it a Game Boy game. And then it vanished again.
But I don't really have much more to add about this game other than, honestly, this is as close to perfect, I think, as almost any video game can really get.
Yeah. The only little quirks about this game are its controls, but it's just limited to the software it has at the time, at the Super Nintendo. So it's still really, really great, but... Yeah. I say it's still the greatest video game I've ever played in my life, but...
but you love it enough to understand that it's got its own problems.
Yeah, probably my favorite part, playing this while doing the Super Metroid experience, I am realizing how much stuff is, like, cleverly hidden in the background. You would think that's something to come, like the storytelling in stuff like Dark Souls, for later, what we're gonna see for games that are using environmental storytelling. But Super Metroid is doing it as well. Also, the skill ceiling for this game is insane. Like, right now I can show you how to, if I could pull this off on camera, even though people on a podcast have no idea what I'm doing right now. You can break this game wide open by doing all sorts of unintended stuff. People don't know the difference. There you go, right there. You don't have to. Alcatraz jump. You can escape without even doing the bomb jump. Now, I lost more time getting out of there, but still, like, the whole game changes when you reach the ending and it's giving you a time, which the first 2 Metroid games, Metroid 1 doesn't give you a time, it just changed Samus's sprite. Metroid 2 actually showed you a time, and then trying to continue on that idea, you beat this game, and you feel like, that wasn't very long. They showed you how long it took you, and now, way ahead of its time, instead of paying attention to the score you got in the game, like look at Super Castlevania, instead, now it's how fast did you beat it? Or how many items did you get? Did you find all of the items? That's probably the first thing that players are going to be interested in doing. Like, can you actually find everything? How do you break the game and do things as fast as possible?
Yes, what I was going to say was this is first big games I can think of which encouraged a sort of speed run mentality to it. Yeah, no, this game just did so much right and still does so much right. Yep, there you go. For those who didn't see, he just performed a glitch where he maintained a ton of speed in his morph ball form to avoid a lot of gates closing down, preventing him from getting a super missile upgrade way earlier than he should have had.
Yes, you're supposed to fight the Spore Spawn in order to get the super missiles, but if you can perform that trick at the very beginning of Brinstar called a Mock Ball, you can completely bypass even fighting that boss. So like I said, huge time saves. One, learning how to roll really quickly with the Morph Ball saves you a ton of time, but also just cutting under there and not fighting a whole boss, that saves a ton of time. And then when I realized, like, hey, why am I even fighting Crocomire and getting the grapple beam if I can just wall kick really, really well? There's all sorts of stuff. Like, this game is way more open than you think it is, and the farther you get into it and the more you learn about it, and especially the glitches and the tricks and stuff, which are unintended, but they add so much more to the game, and it's like the skill ceiling of this game is astronomical. There's a reason it is one of the most speedrun games ever made.
Absolutely.
But anyway, I think we talked enough about this game. I love it, and I'm sorry, I already spoke more than I should have, but I couldn't help myself.
No, it's a phenomenal game. It's on it's on NSO. If you're paying for Nintendo Switch Online, please play this.
Now, we have one last game that is shared between us, and I kind of understand why, but it still makes me sad. It was not included on the Super Nintendo Classic, so I'm going to have to dig through my stuff to get it for you. Right there! Bam! Chrono Trigger.
Chrono Trigger.
Yep, I guess between us, two RPGs that you gotta have. You gotta have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Final Fantasy VI is great. It's like we said, like the perfect Final Fantasy. But holy crap, Chrono Trigger. So aside from this kind of being a soft, unofficial Xeno 1, the first Xeno game, but it's not being called that because Square didn't let them. This game does so much. Just for RPGs, and no, we're going active. That's the only real way to play this game. And no, our name's Chrono. The ATB system, as we just saw, is carried over, but they even have the option if you want to play it for weight instead, where you're actually just doing pure turn-based. But where do we begin? I know we've spoken about this game before.
Yeah.
Minor spoiler: I'm reviewing this game very soon.
Good. I really want to get. I'm looking forward to that.
I've been intimidated by it. There's so
I get it.
much. So the plot of the game is just so cool and crazy at the time. It's doing time travel in a really creative way. At the very get-go, we're going to be thrown into a time portal after basically completing our tutorial, and we're on like this crazy time-hopping adventure that keeps evolving and eventually turns into us trying to prevent this cataclysmic event from happening in the year 9999?
1999.
1999, right? I'm mixing it up. That would be a Xenogears thing.
I was gonna say, we don't even get to watch The Matrix.
No.
Well, I don't want to live in that timeline if I can't watch The Matrix.
But anyway, speaking of Xenogears, Luca, who we just named, it actually appears in that game.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you told me, because I haven't yet to get to Xenogears. I'm working on Xenoblade.
She teaches you how to use the save stations.
Oh, that's my girl.
Yeah.
That's my inventor girl.
Man, so the animations, the world, the music, this is Yasunori Mitsuda of the Xenogears saga and Blade fame. And this game really does feel just like one of those games. It has an interesting plot twist where it will continue subverting you as you go. New crazy worlds you're never expecting. The art design, the world, it's colorful, vibrant, but it's also really dark in several parts.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like when this game was in development and when it was going to be pushed out into the world, the marketing for this was the Dream Team worked on this. And what they meant by that was that Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy, Yuji Horii, the guy who created Dragon Quest, and, may he rest in peace, Akira Toriyama, the Dragon Ball Z mangaka, made the art for this game.
And he had been doing Dragon Quest art before this point, so he was already experienced, not only as like a very talented artist with a ton of personality, but he was already well established into working in games, so he knew what he was doing.
And
Oof.
also, too, the other person that they also pushed was Nobuo Uematsu as the music composer.
Well, and yeah, I know they have Yasunori Mitsuda as well as Nobuhiro Uematsu.
Right, but yeah, they kind of pushed Yasunori Mitsuda aside a little bit for more marketing reasons, but as a quick aside, Yasunori Mitsuda basically created 95% of the music for this game until he literally had to go to the hospital for, like, what was it, collapse or an ulcer?
I don't remember,
but he had to go to the hospital, and he's like, I gotta be able to finish this. And so yeah, Hironobu Sakaguchi said, okay, Nobu, help me out here, and he finished up the game. I don't remember what tracks he made, but still, this is mostly a Yasunori Mitsuda soundtrack. This is basically, when I think JRPG, this is the game I think of, personally.
Yeah, so we should probably mention really quickly, because I haven't reviewed this one, the huge stuff that this is doing, that even Sea of Stars is emulating, is the fact that when you get into combat, you kind of just saw there, where you are on the topographical overworld is where you have your battle. And the characters, enemies, and your party will all take positions. And based on their positions, you'll be able to do certain attacks. You might not be able to reach certain ones. Or you could do certain combo attacks in order to set up a huge AoE or something like that. The farther you play in this, it does a great job at slowly teaching you things one at a time. And you're gaining so much knowledge just from experimenting with the world and finding new time periods you never thought would be in the game. You're revisiting other ones in ways you never expected to. All sorts of great stuff. And man, it does so many great things. I don't even want to spoil, like, of a certain lunch right here. There's so much. The cats, this game is wonderful. Wonderful. I would actually say it's better than Final Fantasy VI.
In a lot of ways, yes.
So, based on what we just said, in my opinion, this is better than any Final Fantasy game. That's how good this is.
I probably might not go that far, but it's really darn close in a lot of respects. I think the story in this game, especially if you go through, take your time with it and see, because the thing about this game is that it's short for a JRPG, but there is so much
long. It's like FF6 is as long as you want it to be.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, this is one of those games that has multiple endings, depending on not only the choices you make, but what content you actually get through.
Right.
So the other big thing that this game does that I don't know of any other game before it that ever did anything like this before, I will say that this is the game that basically introduced New Game Plus, where you could go through the game again with the same level, same equipment, and all that, and find new endings. And
new
stuff.
Endings, yes. I was going to say, Metroid is the first New Game Plus, as far as I can tell, where you beat the game and you unlock a new skin to play the entire game again. And you keep your equipment and stuff, minus the missile and health regen packs. But yeah, for RPGs,
maybe then this is,
RPGs didn't do that. I was going to say the big thing, that, this game does so much. I was going to say the big thing that this game does that I don't see anything else do outside of the Xeno series is, based on your party, wherever you go and whatever you do, they will all have different things to say to each other and to the people they're speaking to. The whole game has so many variables. Like, the quests and things you can do. Like, even though you said it's not that long, really, compared to some other RPGs, you could play this over and over again and be seeing completely different dialogue, doing completely different quests, seeing different sides of the characters. There's so much to it. Zach, it's wonderful.
We're gonna, after you get this review out, I would absolutely love to do a round 2 of that game with you. Just to talk more in depth about. We haven't immediately, as soon as possible.
We haven't done a round 2 in a while, so I'm sure there's a bunch of other games that we need to be jumping onto. So, with all of that out of the way, we've now got to hurry up with the games that were exclusively on our list. But we kind of had double time for the ones that are on both. So, I'm gonna give you a little bit of time. You may go first here with your first exclusive pick.
You know, Alex, when I think of video gaming, Nintendo especially, you know what I think of?
Rare.
I was gonna say monkeys. I don't. Where are you? What are you talking about with rare? This game isn't that rare.
Oh no. Well, I mean, it's rare with how excellent the graphics are for the Super Nintendo.
Oh, you mean those British blokes? Oh,
yeah,
got it.
Them British blokes. Yeah.
Yeah, we are talking about Donkey Kong County, or as normal people say, Donkey Kong Country.
Well, I don't know who these abnormal people are, but yes. A revitalization of Donkey Kong, who had been pretty much dormant outside of the arcade up to this point, and Rare, of all companies, being given the rights to create Donkey Kong's new resurgence on the Super Nintendo.
Because Nintendo, this is not the first nor the last time Nintendo's like, we don't know what to do with this IP, we'll let someone else handle it. So the thing that I absolutely love about this game, number one, especially at the time, if you were around for this game, the graphics. Yeah. This was the thing that everyone harped on, and I still think, you know, say what you will about pre-rendered sprites based on 3D models, I still say this game looks really good.
Oh, yes.
For that tech.
Especially, you put this on a CRT TV, this looks...
Oh, God. It probably
great.
Doesn't compare, yeah.
That's the thing, like, have you played it on a CRT?
I have not.
Yeah, so we're talking about the graphics of a game that you haven't even experienced.
No, because
if you can ever hunt down a cartridge, then we could try that. Honestly, that could be a whole hitbox, but honestly, it's something that people need to see with their eyes, and it wouldn't do very well with a podcast of us saying like, whoa, that color's not even what I thought it was. Because honestly, like, I've played, like I said, with my Super Nintendo I have downstairs, I started booting up with a bunch of games like, oh my god, Samus doesn't even look the way that I expected. Like,
no, that was the crazy part.
Yeah, like the world, everything looks so much better than I imagined. Donkey Kong's not an arcade game anymore. What's going on here, Zach?
So, okay, besides, you know, silicon graphics and all that nonsense, we have a 2D platformer that I think rivals some of the best Nintendo ever put out. Where both Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong are going around Kong Island to stop the Kremlings from, you know, stealing all the bananas. Not just the bananas, but the golden banana hoard that was part of the Kong's treasury. Why did they steal golden bananas? What purpose do they even serve? Who cares?
Who cares?
Go beat up a bunch of crocodiles.
Yeah, you didn't ask questions when Bowser kidnapped Princess Peach. Shut up, go get bananas.
Yeah, go get bananas.
Like, this is weird because we're also playing as Donkey Kong. He was the villain up to this point.
Yeah, this is the first time he's actually like the hero.
So you had to make a villain for the villain, which was already weird.
One of my favorite villains, honestly, because of later games too, not just this game, but how he basically reinvents himself each and every game in order to be a menacing person.
K. Rool's the best.
Yeah, so the thing that I also appreciate is that it really tried to modernize the platformer. It got rid of the scoring system. The two Kongs you play as actually handled differently. Donkey Kong is heavier, but he's stronger, so he can take out some tougher Kremlings. Whereas Diddy Kong is quicker and more agile, but he's not quite as strong, so he can't like take out like Crushes or Blubbas that easy. But it's just the fact that not only do we have that, this game is Secret Central.
Yes.
So you want to talk about
finding a bunch of stuff already in the beginning, but it's also hard. As
gosh, yes.
Yeah, even these early levels can be tough.
Rare did not really put out a whole lot of easy games, I would argue, especially around the Super Nintendo.
No,
time.
When it came time to the N64, they lightened up a little, but some of their games were still insane. Like Jet Force Gemini is nuts. GoldenEye's not an easy game.
No, especially when you play on like secret agent mode in that game. Oh my god. Yeah, this game honestly is the complete platforming package, I'd argue. And it's still getting like copycats even to this day. Ukulele, you know, made by a lot of the same team members who made Donkey Kong and all that, tried to do that with Ukulele and the Impossible Lair. Kaze and the Wild Masks, where you play as a rabbit going around a side-scrolling platforming adventure, very much plays like Donkey Kong Country. Just, it's such an influential game, and it's such an endearing one, I would argue, that some people far prefer Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Conquest to this one, but I don't know, man. Something about the original just really holds up. I don't know, I like it better than the second one for some reason. I don't know about you.
I'm with you there, though, yeah. This is the only one that I enjoyed enough and wanted to finish. The other two, like, I like them. Like, I like Dixie Kong. She's really helpful. If anything, she's too good. But yeah, like, I want to play Donkey Kong in Donkey Kong, you know? Call me crazy.
Who's this Kitty Kong in my Donkey Kong game? Why is he in PJs and he's a toddler? I don't want to play as a baby.
I don't want to play as a sissy baby. What's this about? That is actually
God.
Weird.
A little bit, yeah, but I mean, he's got his charms, I guess, but still.
I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he turned me, I guess.
Dealing with that one right now. If anything, we really should be not looking at all the secrets and moving on to another game here. Good lord, we can't make this too long. Look at that.
We're now talking about probably one of my favorite action RPGs of all time, Secret of Mana.
Yeah, I'm really shocked that this is on here.
Oh, me too. Especially since they actually remade the game.
Why is this here and Chrono Trigger is not? Like, nothing against this game, but like...
No, I get it.
You went to Square Enix, like, Final Fantasy I kind of expected, but like, Chrono Trigger is... Whatever, tell us about Secret of Mana.
So, Alex, did you know that this was originally supposed to be Final Fantasy IV?
There's a lot of games that are really awesome that were supposed to be Final Fantasies we were just complaining about.
And did you also know, too, that Secret of Mana started out as Chrono Trigger?
That I didn't know, but I know that Chrono Trigger's development was just a complete mess.
Oh yeah, as was this game. Mm-hmm. So, this is the second game in the Mana series, the first one being on Game Boy, known as the Final Fantasy Adventure. Mm-hmm. This is an action RPG where you play as a young boy who finds, literally, the sword in the stone. And he grabs the sword and he's like, whoa, what is this? And he's told that he is the one chosen by the Mana Sword that he just drew to wield it to stave off against an evil empire that seeks to use the power of mana, basically magic in this universe, to rule the whole world. And the beautiful thing about this game is that you don't play by yourself as the lone hero. You actually get two other companions to go with you throughout this whole adventure. Not only can you play the single player, where the AI controls the other two characters, but if you have a multi-tap, you and two of your best friends can actually play this game together. I don't know of any other multiplayer RPGs before this.
Yeah,
this just literally blows my mind.
Yeah, River City Ransom?
Okay, there's an argument.
Here.
Yeah, there's an argument, but I'd say that's a very loose argument you got. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like a full scale, like you get experience points, you level up, you get new equipment.
Yeah, not pancakes.
Right, not pancakes or coffee. Although I still... Gosh, don't get me started on River City Ransom. I'll go all day.
That had to have been on our NES one, so right?
Yeah, it was actually.
Yeah, okay, I was gonna say we didn't skip that, did we?
No, we did not. I made sure to talk about it. As I mentioned before, this is an action RPG where the gameplay is in real time, and the whole thing is that the whole world is basically interconnected. There isn't really like an overworld of sorts. You actually go screen by screen, clearing monsters and getting to towns and villages, and it has a beautiful use of Mode 7 where if you actually want to get to certain places fast, you actually are shot out of a cannon and you can like fly through the air to different continents and the world revolves around underneath you with Mode 7 effects. It's a really pretty game for those of you who are watching. Mm-hmm. I still think for the SNES during its middle years, I still think that it does a really good job with the visuals and all that. It plays pretty well. I will say that it is really glitchy because sometimes you will swing your sword and you'll miss. However, it's because there are dice rolls when you actually swing your weapon, like you're actually playing a turn-based game. You could just miss and you're like, no, I was directly on that mushroom. Why the heck is he not dead? Mm-hmm. Which is a choice, and it's one that I really got really acclimated to really quick.
Right.
I don't think it really detracts that much from the game, but for some people that could be a turn-off. And also, too, yeah, you see how when you're swinging the sword willy-nilly, you're not doing any damage?
Right. 0.
Yeah, so that little percentage bar underneath your HP meter represents your power meter. So the best way to fight is to kind of almost take it in turns. Mm-hmm. So you wait
like
for your...
Go in and take a step back, and then jump right back in again.
Exactly. So it helps add a little bit of a strategic layer. It's really slow at the beginning, but once you get the two other characters later on, it almost kind of becomes like an active time battle game, like Square normally did, where it's like, you know, you kind of wait for your right opportunity to strike, like when your meter is at 100% and wait for it to charge. Magic is in this game. It's surprisingly really deep, and the story, you know, for as cliche as some of it can be, can get really dark and really sad. But this whole game is very melancholic, not only from like this story perspective, but if you're listening to the soundtrack, like even this upbeat sound you're hearing for just waltzing through the woods and killing rabites by the dozen, it can feel a little, again, for lack of a better term, almost like melancholy. Like, man, like you're almost like living out in a nostalgic dream in this game. That's the feeling I get from it.
The beginning was very dreamlike, yeah. Still is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah.
Or shooting, you know, a bunch of colorful bunny monster things in the forest. So,
yeah.
Is this what you dream about?
I see. I don't go to sleep counting sheep. I count rabites to go to sleep, and then they attack me in my dreams, and then it's a bad time.
Yeah, this is a great one that I've really been putting off after I've probably finished the Shin Megami Tensei series, which of course, like, we're both in the middle of huge stuff. It's just the way that it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, me jumping on another big Super Nintendo series that I know I'm gonna love. I'm intentionally holding off until I know. I know I got the time for it. I'm already feeling a little tempted to save my progress here, and I shouldn't.
No, don't. Just, I would say come back to it when you can put the time in.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you who actually want to play the Mana series, if you have a Switch, digitally it's easier to find, but you can get the Collection of Mana, which has the first 3 Mana games, Final Fantasy Adventure, Secret of Mana, and the finally officially released version of Seiken Densetsu 3, Trials of Mana, available on one download or cartridge. It's a great bang for your buck.
So, I realized that we accidentally had 2 of yours, but honestly, it works out because there are 2 of mine that are installed on the Super Nintendo Classics. How about we just go to those really quick? And the first one is this. The sequel. I'm going to say official sequel to Super Mario World. And though I said we never got a proper Super Mario World sequel, implying that I'm disappointed in Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, no, I love this game.
This is a good game.
Kind of like Donkey Kong Country, we're looking at some really, really good graphics. The music is top-notch for the system. This is actually using the Super FX chip, but not doing it in a way like Star Fox, for example, where it's trying to do early 3D and push the system as far as it can go. Now, I love Star Fox, but I'm sorry, if I can only pick 10 Super Nintendo games, I have to cut it. And if I'm cutting it for anything that's going to use Super FX chip, this is the one. This game
no doubt.
is, though I love Super Mario World, this is an evolution in a different direction. It's a completely unique, very creative style sequel where we are playing exclusively as Yoshi, in the past trying to Pony Express Baby Mario to his brother who was captured by Kamek at Baby Bowser's castle. It's cute, the aesthetic of the whole game is wonderful, and then the level design is very different. You're playing almost as an invincible character who is just trying to make sure that this baby doesn't get stolen. And you do get different abilities throughout the game. You get watermelon seeds, you can breathe fire, you can transform into different things. Every level feels very creative and new and different, and it's always keeping you interested. In the gameplay's difficulty is actually pretty good. Like, it starts out pretty easy, but most Yoshi games anymore, like Crafted World, Woolly World, they're so easy that I feel like it's not giving me that itch to want to complete or keep playing it. This is a very satisfying difficulty level where I want to keep going back and I want to keep playing this game over and over again. And this I have played over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like the later Yoshi 2D side-scrolling games, like you said, almost have like a flat difficulty curve. Like it kind of stays at one difficulty and doesn't ramp up. Where this, like you said, Absolutely, especially if you're not going for like all the stars and flowers and red coins.
Mm-hmm.
Even just trying to get through some of those levels is a nightmare in and of itself in some of these stages.
Yeah, some can be difficult enough that you would think, like, I don't even know how I'm gonna survive, much less, like, I just want to beat the level. And eventually when that sets in, it's like, okay, cool, you're just playing to survive, but then you always have more to go back and do later, even though you've beaten the game, because your map is always open, and you can always go to any page you want. Sure, it's not filled with secret exits and things like that in a giant intertwined world like in Mario World. It's back to this level, then this one, then this one. But you can go in any order that you want when you have it open and you want to backtrack and just learn where were those hidden stars? Where were all those red coins?
Yep, because the way that this game kind of implements its secrets is in each level themselves, where it's not a straightforward race to the finish like it is in Mario World.
No timer.
No timer. You have all the time in the world to explore these levels, not only to get through to get to the next level, but you have certain collectibles that you can actually find in each stage, ranging from 30 red coins, 5 happy flowers rather, let me get the name right, happy flowers, to also stars, which translates to, I guess, Mario's power, in essence. Basically, it increases the amount of time that you have, like when you take damage, like what's just happened on screen if you're watching.
It is a timer before Comics Toadies catch wind of the crying and they find him.
Yep,
and they'll take him away. The Make Eggs, Throw Eggs, which is actually the title of this first level, is teaching you the big thing that's going to define who Yoshi is and what makes a Yoshi game not a Mario game. And honestly, I still haven't seen a Yoshi game. Even if we're not calling this a Mario World, we're calling it a Yoshi game. I've never seen one that was this good.
Me neither. I know that there was like a couple of other handheld games that I haven't tried yet on like the DS and 3DS.
Yeah,
but
I have.
From what you've told me, they're not that great.
No, they're not. Well, they're not.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame.
Well, it's like, what is this though? This feels like, again, I always use this term, I've realized in a lot of these episodes, but I still think it holds true. This is another one of those like products of their time, almost like lightning in a bottle kind of game, where it's like, I don't think we're ever going to get a game that exactly feels like Yoshi's Island ever again, where it's that certain mix of whimsy, but also this certain like level of difficulty and like dark undertones, because the other games are like almost saccharine in how happy they are.
Yeah, they are. And this one, like, it's kind of disturbing in some parts. Like, Poochie actually is really weird and creepy looking.
Yes, I know.
And there's enemies that are pretty vicious looking. They cutesy it up in the other ones by making everything made of yarn or their little toys and their crafts, and it's adorable. But no, this is a full dangerous Mario world, and there's lots of crazy stuff to discover in this one. Also, lots of puzzle solving your way around. Since it's taking advantage of the fact that there is no timer, you can pretty much just go at your own pace and try and solve the world, as opposed to trying to rush through it and simply survive. That's the Mario thing to do. The Yoshi thing to do is to take your time and try to 100% it, how to get all of those flowers. You don't have to do it. You still, kind of like Celeste, like you beat the game by not getting a single strawberry.
Right.
But
yeah,
they're there. And you want them because you play video games, you see a collectible there, and you want to be proud of your own scores, and that's what makes this game's difficulty higher.
Yeah, you can beat this game without having collected a single collectible, but yet, the more you do, though, you actually can unlock secret levels. And they're actually a really huge challenge. When I played this on the Game Boy Advance... Yes. I didn't even beat them all when I played it initially on the Game Boy Advance.
I didn't either. There's so
no
many,
way.
And they're hard to even unlock, because you have to start 100%ing previous level, or like whole worlds, to even get one.
Oh, I know. And you're like, oh my god, can I even do this? But that's just the genius of the level design and of the game's difficulty.
I was 2 stars off.
Right there.
Oh, man. But that's how it gets you. So, Yeah, like, I finished this with all 20 red coins, all 5 flowers, but I was 2 stars away from a perfect total 100%. And since you, like I was saying with Super Metroid, it's genius when you beat the whole game, and you're like, oh, good, I'm done, I can put the game down. It shows you, oh, you did it in this time with this completion. And you're like, oh, I can do better than that. And then this does the same thing. It pulls it up, but it does it at every level. And it's like, oh, you only got a 98%. I could get 100. I could do better than that. And then, of course, you do some of the harder ones, and you get like 40% because you barely squeezed by, and you found like none of the special stuff. Oh, man. And even on the overworld map, the Yoshis are trading off Baby Mario, different colored Yoshis every time. This game is adorable, and I love it, but it's a very different game from Super Mario World, which is why I feel like I need to include it as well. Anyway,
just
my
like this
next one. Yep, you can also play on here. So I went back and forth in my head thinking, there's some great racing games on the Super Nintendo, and I want to pick one. I don't want to be that guy and just lean on Mario Kart, but Mario Kart is really good on the Super Nintendo.
I was gonna say, honest to God, dude, what other choice did you really have? Like, be honest.
F-Zero, but F-Zero, like, here, honestly,
yeah.
For the development of F-Zero, it's pretty interesting because they were basically tasked with trying to make a multiplayer F-Zero, and to try and add personality to the racers, because it's multiplayer, each person needs to really identify with their car, as opposed to it just being like F-Zero, where it's like, I'm the orange one, you're the pink one. They wanted to add more personality, so they threw the Mario characters, and everything kind of became history from there. So this, once again, is that lightning in a bottle, a genius idea that is going to make Nintendo redonkulous money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the items, the combat, kart racing, everything here. This game really has it all. Also, the pseudo 3D back then, like, with the map below, like, F-Zero did this on the full screen.
And that's the cool part about this game. So, it does play like in a sort of weird split screen where the top part of the screen is the play field and the bottom screen shows you the position of all the other racers. But I think you can actually hit a button where you can actually get a rear view mirror image and actually see who's directly behind you, which is really cool, because then you can like cut them off and stop the rubber banding from like having the enemy overtake you.
Right, it's a button. It is Y. Oh, that's a mini mush. I didn't realize that was even in this game.
I didn't either. Well, look at that. We learned.
That's what they were throwing at me. That's why I kept turning my camera around. Yeah, they jumped over it to try and avoid it.
Well, I have learned something today, Alex.
I didn't even realize it was in here. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. There's so much they designed for this. It's working really well. It's multiplayer, too. Like, there's so much to this. I can get way more mileage out of this, if you pardon the pun, as opposed to, like, F-Zero or some of the other just racing games that are basically Outrun. This one just has all the personality. It has the replay value. It's got so much to it. It's a ton of fun.
I agree. And again, this one is also on Super Nintendo Online, so you can play it there as well. It's so good. So, if we're going to be moving on to the next game, we'll go ahead and just go back to mine, and we are going back into this with a bang. We're going on with Soul Blazer.
Soul Blazer.
Blazing them souls. That's what April 20th is all about, right?
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's
okay, got it.
It's about Enix making an action RPG.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what everybody does on 420.
So this is again another action RPG. I have a preference, I can't help it, but when the game is actually really this good, I can't help it. So this is a game from Quintet. You guys might know them from the game ActRaiser, which actually got a remake of, a couple years back?
Was it years already? I feel like that just came out.
Yeah, no, it's been a couple years. So,
fine.
The premise of this game is that basically you are an angel sent by the god of this world to go down and save this kingdom, where in the manual it tells you that the king made a deal with the devil that for every soul he traded the devil, he would get a gold piece. And so this whole world has been depopulated.
That's what you're worth.
Uh-huh.
Nice.
So Yeah, so he's called Death Toll, but I think in the Japanese he's actually called Satan. It's like, because
Nice.
and that's what Quintet
well.
did. They actually dug into like a lot of religious themes and motifs.
Yeah,
with
you
their
couldn't
games.
avoid it with ActRaiser.
No, absolutely not.
Mhm.
I mean, literally, the master sends you to come down, and he's like, "Yeah, go save the world, man. Do it for me." And you're like, "Yeah, sure, God, whatever."
Mhm.
But the thing is, so it's an action RPG where you delve down into the different dungeons, you talk to everything, and I literally mean everything. Like, if you're watching this, you are talking to a tulip in a pot.
Yep.
Because it is a living thing, technically. So you have the ability to talk to plants, animals, and humans, and even some things that kind of fall in between. And you go down to these dungeons and you're taking out monsters that spawn from their lairs, gauntlet style. And with each one that you destroy, you actually can reshape the labyrinth that you're in, or you can free a specific soul that had been traded in to the devil. And it reshapes all the different towns and villages you visit throughout your journey. You can accrue different weapons and armor and magics. And I believe with the Y button, you actually can cast the spells. And depending on where your little blue sphere is, determines where the shot is actually fired from, and on the magic. One thing that I think is really cool about this game is that you do swing in an arc like you do in something like The Legend of Zelda.
Mhm.
However, like if you're facing to the north, your sword will actually contact and do the most damage on the right side of you because your character's right-handed.
Uh-huh.
And so it's a really cool way to like kind of finagle your way around the dungeon and actually make it so that way you want to position yourself in a way that's advantageous to where you can do the most damage based on the end of your swing. So like see right there, if you're watching, Alex has just released an old woman. And it brings her house with her. I don't think the house is a living thing, but hey, she's back, so she's got to have her house back. And that's the whole crux of the game. Like, you go from dungeon to dungeon, dealing with all the various monsters and bosses, just trying to save this world. And along the way, it really tackles some heavy themes. Like, there's talks of, like, death and, like, oh, gosh, unrequited love and just the nature of greed and good and evil. And for a 1992 game, that's heavy. You know, on the Super Nintendo of all things, but that's what Quintet did, and that's why they're one of my favorite developers. And it's just such a shame that after the Super Nintendo days and just one PlayStation 1 game, they basically didn't do anything else after
Basically
that,
didn't
and
exist.
it's a shame.
Yeah.
Right, even though they're not technically defunct, they just don't make anything. They're not disbanded, they're just there in Square Enix's pocket.
Yeah.
Which is a right shame, but I absolutely love this game. I'm actually, while playing Xenoblade Chronicles, I'm actually playing the spiritual sequel to this, Illusion of Gaia, which tackles a lot of similar themes, and it's just a better... So far, it's a better in terms of, like, its combat and all that, but they're just such cool action RPGs. If you're a fan of these kind of games looking for something new to play that you haven't had a chance to try before, try out Soul Blazer first and just have a good time. Yeah, that's all I got to say. Anything you want to add about this in your short time playing this?
My list? Oh, no, this is great. I want to be able to spend more time with this one, but I want to make sure that, like, when I do, I don't, like, follow up once again on a file that I only started a little bit here. Anyway, no, not your next one. My next one? Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
we're
we'll do
doing?
your next one, yeah.
Okay, let me find it. Mine is a game that we kind of got over here in the West, but it was called Tetris Attack. This is Paneled Upon. I wanted to have some sort of puzzle game on mine, as I did with the NES. If I'm going to be stuck with it and I want to pick one puzzle game, gosh darn it, Paneled Upon is awesome.
Well, why is it awesome, Alex?
It's kind of hard to... Okay, so it's another one of those endless falling block kind of puzzle games. It seems very basic at first, and the deceptive thing is them calling it Tetris Attack. That was just a stupid idea. Instead, the idea is you're trying to rearrange blocks and colors that you see to try and line up multiples in a row. And then by doing that, that's how you actually clear more of the, like, the falling blocks in order to keep yourself from slowly moving everything up to the top, and I guess not really killing your character, but like I don't know how you can describe death in a puzzle game where you're hitting the top.
You failed the puzzle.
You die.
That's basically the equivalent of death in a puzzle game.
Death.
You fail.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the way that this game works, it's the Tetris moniker was just there for advertising, but
yeah,
the blocks are slowly rising from the bottom of the screen, and you have a little cursor that's got 2 boxes with which you can actually swap places with the little squares that are popping up from the bottom of the screen. And you do sort of a match 3 thing where you want to match 3 of the same color or shape box, and the longer the chain you get, the more points you get. And so in the endless mode, yeah, you're just basically going to see your, what kind of score you can actually get. Whereas I believe there is a story mode where you can actually get into battles against the AI to see who can actually get the highest score and like screw over the other player with like different attacks, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of different modes to this, which is another nice thing for a puzzle game. You want to be able to feel like you could actually play this forever, or for as long as you can enjoy sinking the time into. And looking at all the puzzle games on the Super Nintendo, of which there were many, this one I think is just my favorite.
I can see that. I'm not really a big puzzle game kind of person, but honestly, these kind of games are really cool. I do enjoy them quite a lot. And because it always comes back to Smash, this is the debut of Lips, where Lipstick comes from. Yep. Yeah, Lip, thank you. Yeah, so
anyway,
a little bit of trivia.
That's the thing. Now you know that. There's a whole Mii costume for that weird girl. But yeah, that is on NSO Online, I believe. Also, so is Magical Drop 2, which we did not get the West at all, I don't think. But another great puzzle game for the Super Nintendo. Anyway, Zach, your next one will take me a minute to pull up. I have many folders to dig through. Oh, one moment. Right there. All right. Is this that there game that you wanted to play on your list right there?
I think that is something about them stupid teenagers in sewers with shells, power.
Yeah, that are somehow in the Daredevil universe from Marvel.
Oh, for real, actually?
Yes. Okay.
That's sweet.
Now, here's your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle trivia of the day. The very same radioactive whatever that caused Matt Murdock to get his superpowers and become Daredevil leaked into the sewer and is canonically the very same radioactive material that turned these 4 turtles into whatever these mutant teenage ninja things are.
Oh my god, I actually didn't know that.
It's goofy, and I don't think they were, like, allowed to say that, but they did it anyway.
I was gonna say, when you're in the realm of independent comics in the 80s, I mean, anything goes, I guess.
Yeah. So, Zach, tell us about TMNT Turtles in Time.
So, I am a huge fan of beat-em-ups. I play as many as I possibly can. This is a beat-em-up from Konami, which originally started out as an arcade game, and it was a 4-player juggernaut that just basically ate up all your quarters, whereas, you know, this game is a pretty darn faithful translation of that arcade game. Like, graphically, it's different. It's downgraded, definitely, but it's so close to the arcade, it doesn't really matter that much. So you're playing as one of the 4 turtles, going around New York, stopping Shredder and Krang from doing whatever Shredder and Krang are doing this time to save New York and the Statue of Liberty. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And all of history, apparently.
Oh, yeah, you get to the Technodrome, and turns out Shredder was making a time machine, and you've got to go through time and stop Shredder's shenanigans in time.
For the sake of more interesting backgrounds, and that's really it. But hey, I'll take it.
Yeah,
what's
seriously.
interesting about this is there was a Sega Genesis version of kind of the same game, but they let you play completely different levels.
Yes, that one was called the Hyperstone Heist.
Yep.
So it really is basically the Sega Genesis version of Turtles in Time, but it's its own beast, and I really appreciate that version of the game for it. However, I can't help it. This game on the Super Nintendo just rocks, and I love this game. This is one of the best beat-em-ups. Shredder's Revenge, I think, is the only game in the Turtles franchise, like of video games, that actually, I think, tops this game, honestly.
Yeah, the animations, the way that this plays, it really does feel like an arcade.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Konami were like was one of the big players in the arcade scene. Like, you saw the Konami logo on an arcade title, you knew you were in for a good time. Especially when they had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle license. By the way, how crazy is it? It's like a Japanese developer just makes some of the greatest American IP licensed video games of the time.
I know.
It's so awesome.
Yeah, that is kind of fun.
Yeah. But it's a well-playing beat-em-up. I still think it holds up today. Unfortunately, due to licensing.
You could have picked Final Fight. And there were some other big ones on here.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't pick those because of the fact that, especially with Final Fight, it was not originally a two-player game. It was only a one-player game. It's like, in my case, a lot of the time, it's fine, but sometimes you really just want to sit down next to your buddy and you just want to kick the crap out of a bunch of multicolored ninjas indiscriminately. Just be like, nope, no ninjas allowed in my New York City. And, I think that was the big deciding factor for me. And besides, you've got 4 different characters that have, like, different weapons, which changes up their play style pretty significantly, all things considered.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they all, visually look the same, but yeah, they have completely different weapons.
And for me, this is one of those games that's just infinitely replayable. Bye, Baxter.
Yeah.
Fly person, you.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah.
It's a good
Anything you wanted to add before we move on to your final one?
Waiting a moment and thinking, nope.
Nope. Okay, fine. Let's move on to your last one. And Alex, where is this game in your massive library?
Well, so if you remember last time when we did our NES lineup, we were like, okay, we should make sure that you're actually buying games that actually came out on this console, an NES. We're not doing the Famicom, we're doing an NES. Well, we tried to do that for this one. We had a lot of trouble because some of the games that came on the Super Famicom are so freaking amazing, and if you have a physical Super Nintendo today, it is not hard to still get a fan-made cartridge that just plays this translated version of a Famicom game. Oh, because there's so many great ones in here. Like, Zach actually passed up Dragon Quest. He passed up, like, Clock Tower almost made your list over Dragon Quest. I was kind of surprised.
Well, because I was thinking, okay, I don't want my whole list to be RPGs, and it's like, if I had to pick one, it would have had to have been Final Fantasy. But speaking of RPGs, though, this looks kind of familiar.
Yeah, Shin Megami Tensei. This never even came to the West, but gosh darn it, this is one of the best games on the console. It is easily one of the best RPGs on the console, and this console has some of the best RPGs ever made. This game's amazing, and I'm a little bitter that my saves are all gone.
Yeah, because we could have shown off, like, some of your Demon Party and stuff like that,
Yeah, and endings and whatnot, but whatever. Anyway, so I have reviewed this, so I guess I could say that to try and save us a little bit of time. This is a first-person RPG dungeon crawler where you get to recruit your own party based on the demons that you encounter. It's a very dark game. It's probably the reason that we never got it.
Yeah, when you're actually fighting literal angels and demons from Judeo-Christianity, that probably wouldn't fly in the States back in, 1992?
Yeah, it doesn't matter that it's not just Christianity. Everything is fairly here.
Yeah, like we've got Buddhist religious stuff, we've got Shinto, we have Celtic mythology. It's a hodgepodge of basically all things religious and mythological, and it's crazy what they do with it.
Yeah. The story is nuts, it's apocalyptic, it's ambiguous of what's good and what's evil, and it makes you rethink a lot of stuff that you have to do. The areas you have to go in are absolute madness. Everything that happens in this is just crazy. Everything wants to kill you. The game isn't even pretending that it's going to give you a fair chance. You need to claw your way up to the top through this, and it gets hard, but it's just hard enough that it's satisfying, that you can push through. and you can do it, because the enemies in the area, if you could just recruit the right ones, or find how strong they are, then you're suddenly set. I have reviewed this. I highly recommend you check it out. I'm gonna say this is probably still my second favorite Shin Megami Tensei game. It's a tough call, because I really love them all for different reasons. Like, on the Super Nintendo, though, this is unbelievably good.
Yeah, because I think you're still trying to get through the second game, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. It's actually the only numbered Shin Megami Tensei game that I have not completed at all, and I made sure to do, like, the true endings, or the neutral ending, the hardest ones I could get on each. And that's asking a lot. On some of these.
It really is, yeah.
I just reviewed Shin Megami Tensei 4. That is a particularly tough one to walk that fine line and get that neutral ending. This one is also particularly tough, but it's not as bad, because at least you can see on the overworld which direction your little icon is spinning. But yeah, recruiting the demons is so much fun. Fusing them, figuring out what you can create is... it's so ahead of its time. Like, this is Pokemon before Pokemon, and it's kind of better than Pokemon, because, like, it's not afraid to offend you. It will do... It's going to throw religion under the bus. It's going to throw... it's going to destroy societies. It's going to have nuclear holocaust weapons. It's going to have... anything you can imagine. Like, your mother gets knifed up and sliced from the inside out from a demon that you have to kill. Freaking Stephen Hawking is going to give you malware that allows you to play the game. It's actually going to happen here in just a bit. It's crazy. Actually, this is the email that Stephen Hawking just emails you.
Yep. Yeah, like, this game also throws its own government under the bus, saying it's like, yeah, they've not done enough to help stop the demon onslaught.
Right, and which is the cause of the second apocalypse. There are many in this, and it's a wonder that humanity even survives at the end of this game. Just what everybody has to get through. It's nuts. It is absolutely, like, okay, here. So there is a actual, unrelated to the demons, there is a zombie apocalypse. Okay, that's just happening, and people are ignoring it. Okay, there's a zombie apocalypse, and then there are demons that are actually, like, somehow crawling out into the real world. You'll find out how later. There is a demon apocalypse going on. While that's happening, there are people arguing about what they need to do in this new universe where demons are actually roaming the real world. There's, like, government groups that are rebels or trying to team up with the demons. People are fighting them. It turns out that Thor, the mythological Thor, ends up shooting nuclear warheads at Japan to try and level the place and destroy all of this and set it back into a world by his own ideals. You do what you want to try and stop this, and you can't. Huge red letters appear on screen, or numbers appear on screen. You watch this countdown timer, and it lets you struggle. This is the 90s, 92, I think. So people are freaking terrified of the idea of nuclear weapons. And this game is trying to scare the ever-living crap out of you. And it kind of works.
And once again, the Super Nintendo is just the birthplace of just basically perfecting formulas. Atlas had created Megami Tensei 1 and 2 on the NES, which were... the first Megami Tensei was based on the original light novel. The second was kind of their attempt to try to break away a little bit and do their own thing with, like, the idea of summoning demons with the computer program. But Shin Megami Tensei...
Yeah, here, check this out.
Boy.
Like, you just run into this random dude, and this guy just gets sliced up and murdered in front of you. And suddenly you're in combat with a Preda. The Haunt Preda appeared and ripped out the man's throat. This is not like any other RPG you have seen on this console. Also, we didn't mention, this soundtrack is awesome. Man, this rocks.
Oh my god, yes. There's a PlayStation version or remake of this game, technically, and it does not sound, I don't think, near as good as the Super Nintendo version.
Not even close. And you know what sounds even worse than that is the Game Boy Advance version.
Oh, I was going to say the Sega CD version.
Yeah, The Super Nintendo sounds the best. It just sounds the best. It's like the way to play this game. Like, the music is so good, I feel like this is the way to do it. Oh yeah, I didn't even finish all my apocalypses. Like, let me see.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, you survive the ICBMs by being teleported, spirited away into the future. And you have to find your party again in the future. Eventually, while you're there is going to be another apocalypse where God decides to flood, because the nukes weren't enough, flood the world to try and purge it and start over because of this demon outbreak being out of control. So people have to build this giant cathedral that was supposed to be devoted to their god, but everyone hoards and runs inside of it because it's the only thing above water. And then they're fighting for ground inside there. Now the last of humanity, imagine this, like, the entire world is gone. And now the only survivors of, like, 4 apocalypses are fighting each other in warring chunks of this giant floating cathedral, trying to get to safety. And you, the audacity of you, have to fight your own friends in order to get far enough into this so that you can defeat both sides to keep them at bay and try and allow humanity to get back onto its feet again.
Yep.
Like, oh my god, this game is insane. And it, like, the thing is, it's not just, like, senseless nonsense violence, it's also, like, trying to say something at the same time. We don't see enough games, I think, that do that very well.
Not really, no. I mean, it's a very conscious decision, and it's just very easy for a lot of video games. And this is not saying anything bad about video games that don't try to comment on, like, violence and its repercussions and all that.
No.
But it's a special kind of game that really tries to make a point of it and doesn't admonish you, but it doesn't really answer its own question. It kind of leaves it open, like, okay, is this really correct in what you're doing in this game? Or, you know, outside of something like this, like, think of something like, there was like a war shooter that took place in Dubai where it's like, it talked about, like, how you actually have choices in this war and stuff. I don't know, man.
It kind of reminds me of Papers, Please, what you're saying, where
a little bit.
Yeah, like, the world can do some crazy stuff, but it's also, like, at the same time, it's always very real. You can have real decisions of what to do, but there's never a right answer. There is no good solution in Papers, Please. Like, you inevitably have to screw over some people. You have to cheat. You have to let some people sneak in when they're not supposed to get citations, just so that you can try to do the best thing either for yourself or for your family, or to try and escape a horrible regime of a government that needs to be overthrown, that you have to work for. And it's making you ask this kind of questions that I think Shin Megami Tensei is also doing, because this is, like, absolute madness to the extreme, but it's also making sure that these people are all acting like real people, and what would they do in those situations? And you are now in that situation, first person, walking around. How are you gonna live? Real demons are everywhere in the world. What on earth are you gonna do? The best thing you could do is try to negotiate with them and try to survive amidst them, which is what you need to do to survive in this game.
Right, because even in this, oh, quick aside, the game I was thinking of was Spec Ops: The Line.
Spec Ops: The Line.
Yes. Yeah, with this, even in the very beginning of the game, when the wall closes and tells you to identify yourself, it even says to you, be careful not to tip the balance too far one way or the other.
Yes.
And it really wants you to think about various situations you get in, and it actually wants you to role play.
Yes.
And that's very rare in a console RPG. God, we could go on about this game all night.
I know, we could. I adore it. I have reviewed it. We can get more into that later. And honestly, I just finished playing Xenoblade Chronicles Future Redeemed. I didn't want to actually play that until I had recompleted Xenoblade Chronicles and played it on the Switch. Wow, it is such a great remaster, the definitive edition. So I finally got through all of that, completed Future Redeemed, and I'm like, all right, Shin Megami Tensei 2, I'm coming for you.
Heck yes.
I got like 6 hours into that game, and I gotta hammer it out, because it's very different. I still really like it. Oh boy, I was actually running into some weird emulation issues, translation patch problems and stuff like that. This one was pretty good. The only downside to playing the common translation that you can find on the internet was I wasn't able to, I think, equip bullets for like the first 2 or 3 towns or something like that, and that's it. Everything else works fine. And you honestly don't need them at that point. Demons are powerful enough. You'll eventually need it. You'll realize how good a gun that hits all and paralyzes with stun can be in breaking the game wide open. But that's the thing, like, you can really break this game wide open the more you learn about how to mess with your demons, how to mess with your party, your equipment, just like pretty much any RPG that's designed really well. Allow the player to have that freedom to discover more and more the more you let them mess with this stuff. Anyway, I adore this game. I could talk about it all night, but that I think is about it. We really need to wrap this giant episode up. Whew. Is there anything else you'd like to say about this wonderful system, the Super Nintendo, Zach?
The library feels like endless. Like, no matter where I turn, I'm still finding new games I want to try, but I don't have the time to play them all.
It's a freaking goldmine. Yeah.
It is.
But yeah, there's so many great games on this to explore and discover that I hope that other people are like us, just going back and digging into these things that, honestly, like, this console came out like when I was born, okay? So it's old for me too. Don't think that I'm playing this just because I'm old. I love these old games just because, like, people thought different back then when they were making games, and the whole mentality, it's interesting to see where things are going to evolve from that point, from history. But also, games can be so fun when you go in expecting nothing. You're like expecting it, oh, this is just gonna play kind of old, like I haven't heard much of this, it's probably not gonna be great, and just getting wowed by stuff that you weren't expecting. Like, I went through the entire Virtual Boy library. Man, I was surprised. There's some good games in there.
Absolutely.
We're going through Atari for the Atari Action Hour, and there's a lot of really cool stuff we're finding in there that you could even say is a whole genre that's untapped and no one's doing anything with it. But there you go. It's back on Atari. You would only ever know by going back and playing everything on there. So maybe one day when we can ever go back and play everything on the Super Nintendo, this list will likely change. But for now, that's where it sits for me. I'm happy with that. Is there anything that you feel bad that you couldn't fit on your list, Zach?
Like you said, I wanted to try to include Clock Tower because, my God, what a great survival horror game. But again, it's not one that I've played or beat by myself. This was me like watching a couple playthroughs some time ago. And with Dragon Quest V, I couldn't justify even to myself, like, if I wanted someone to play the definitive RPGs on the Super Nintendo, I would say Final Fantasy VI, and I couldn't convince myself otherwise. But for Dragon Quest V specifically, it's the DS version that is my absolute favorite.
I see.
Yeah, so again, it's just little things like that that kind of swayed me, but there's, again, just so much, and I can only pick 10.
Yeah, can only pick 10. It was tough. This has been fun. It's very late for us, though. I know we have to wrap this one up. Sorry in advance, Zach, for having to edit this one, but I'm very busy working on editing a Super Metroid experience, so hopefully it pays off and I can have that done before I have an upcoming trip soon. That's really my goal, is to make sure I can get that done on time. Whew. Anyway, it has been fun talking about Super Nintendo and getting to play more of these games, and honestly, I'd be down with doing an extra 10. This it's such a great console.
Do you wanna?
No, we need to move on. I think we should talk about some other consoles, and we need to give the Super Nintendo a rest. We both love it too much. Anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of HITBOX. If you enjoy the show, you can help us keep it alive by supporting us on Patreon with the links in the show notes and this video's description. For those of you on YouTube, remember to like the video and subscribe for more, and be sure to let us know what you thought of the show and what other topics you'd like to hear us cover in the future, and special thanks to all of our Patreon members. See ya!